So once again, we find ourselves at a very interesting crossroads in the building journey. I take a lot of suggestions from you guys in terms of things you'd like to see, and today's build is no different, but it's from an anime that I have literally never seen or heard of, and I don't even think I can pronounce it. JUJUTSU Kaisen. I think I'm saying that wrong. Hey Terraria fans, welcome back to another speed build video. Guys, in this one we are building something very specific from the anime Jujutsu Kaisen, which is, I guess, a very popular anime and I guess fairly new. Not really big into the scene, but I saw this thing and it looked very, very cool. Now, if you're not familiar with the show like me, I needed a couple of photos to understand sort of what this is, and it looks like a sort of evil shrine thing. I believe it's called a... Hold on, let me check my notes. It is called the Malevolent Shrine, and it's, I guess, an ability or an area or something from one of the characters in the show. Now, it's probably no surprise to you that I am not super familiar with this anime. I don't really know them that well. The space is a little bit foreign to me, but I've actually built something from Seven Deadly Sins. I believe that was the Boar Hat's Tavern, but I have to check my notes. And also one from One Piece, which was the Going Merry, which was really fun as well. Now, if you do want to catch me building anything like this from an anime or from any other show, or really just anything in general, guys, feel free to check out the Twitch link below where you can catch me live. And additionally, if you're enjoying any of the content here on the channel, or if you're enjoying this video right now, feel free to hit the like, the subscribe, or the little dinner bell thingy so you can know when the next video hits the old YouTube universe. Oh, and don't forget to stay till the end of the video, guys, because I will be covering every single material. So if you do want to try to replicate this, build an exact copy, or I guess try to do something similar, I cover everything there, and it's really helpful just to kind of see a little bit of the detail work that I do, the color choices, and of course, well, the raw blocks and walls. So check it out. Anyways, with all that said, guys, let's build this Malevolent Shrine, shall we? Alright guys, so with the Malevolent Shrine from Jujutsu Kaisen now done, let's go ahead and cover all of the materials. Now as always, I encourage you to pause the video here if you want to take a closer look, because there is a lot going on and there is a lot of materials that I don't often use. So if you want to take a closer look, this is the perfect time to do so. So to start out, I want to cover all of the walls because there's quite a number of them and they're fairly unique and not walls that I often use. Now you might see this Heaven Forge and this Cryocore brick wall, which are Luminite variants. I have been using these a little bit more frequently, so while I don't use them all the time, they are becoming a little bit more common in my builds. But that can't be said for Silver Brick Wall, which again, I use sparingly in this build, but I almost never use it and it fit really well in my opinion. This is similar to Chlorophyte Brick Wall as well, and even the Arcane Rune Wall, which I have just in a few sections. I also use some Crystal Block Wall, some Hive Wall, and some Spooky Wood Wall, which I'm hoping you can see fairly clearly. We also used some Boreal Fence, some Rich Mahogany Fence, some Ashwood Fence, and even some Bamboo Fence. These add a lot of texture in different places, and I think they look pretty good. They're not something that are meant to stand out, but they're meant to give it that little bit of texture and detail that's missing from the design. But then things get a little bit weird because I used some Solar Brick Wall, some Disc Wall, some Ethereum Brick Wall, and even some Desert Fossil Wall. Now the Desert Fossil stands out in particular, guys, because I almost never use it. In fact, I think I've never used it for any of the builds I've done because it's just something I don't use. But when you need a background that has that sort of bone-like texture, this is absolutely a must-have. It is perfect for this build, and I'm so glad that I got to use it. All right, so moving on from the walls, I'm going to cover the actual blocks I use, and surprisingly, there aren't that many. A lot of it is just going to be some, Rich Mahogany Fence, along with some shingles and some marble column, some boreal wood, and some spooky wood, and even some large bamboo that make up the bulk of the design. But where it gets really interesting again is when we use the bone block, which I don't use very often, but in combination with our fossil wall and the rubble maker adding some bones here and there, you get this really interesting effect in the foreground as well as a bit in the background with all that white painted bone that I really think makes this feel evil and actually stand out as being a little bit more interesting. So yeah, not a ton of blocks are actually used in this build, which is surprising. A lot of the work comes from the walls, like I said, but the other thing that's giving us a lot of work here is going to be our paints. And these paints are actually fairly easy to tell what's being used because of course it's a lot of red. We used a lot of illuminant coating as well, but there are spots where we have a little bit of yellow, a little bit of black, some deep cyan, a lot of white for the bone, and even a little bit of deep sky blue paint. But yeah, guys, that covers all of the material. So if you have any questions about anything there, do leave a comment down below and I will get back to you. With that said, guys, and our materials covered, let's go ahead and move on with the rest of the video. Alright guys, so there you go. There is the Malevolent Shrine from Jujutsu Kaisen done. I'm not familiar with the anime, like I said, but I actually think this is a really cool build and a pretty good rendition, and hopefully you guys that are big fans of the anime will, well, agree. Now, there are a lot of really cool details in this build, despite it not being a very large one, but I think the part that stands out the most to me, or the one that really makes this build have a nice feel to it, is going to be all of that bone that we have in the foreground. It's really fun to use Desert Fossil. It's not something I use a lot, but I combine that with the Rubble Maker to really make this stand out and make it feel like kind of an evil place. I also do think that I did a pretty good job with the roof. It actually looks pretty good. Some of the designs initially were not great in my first sort of, I guess, attempts, but over time I kind of came up with this pattern feature that looks pretty good, and the shape and the background pieces on the top section actually look fairly good. Again, keeping in mind that, well, roofing is a little bit of a tricky endeavor. Oh, and for those wondering, I did use a Nebula monolith in the background to give it this sort of pinkish hue. I was also thinking that perhaps the solar one would also work, but I went with the purple. I just thought it had a better contrast. Now, one thing I gotta say up front, guys, if you have ever seen the show or seen pictures of what this actually looks like, it's actually surrounded by a dark void with reflective water, which obviously is not something I can do in Terraria, so we kind of had to go with this floating island instead. Again, apologies for anyone who's a big fan of the show, but I did the best I could, and again, I'm pretty happy with the final result. But again, guys, that's just my opinion, so let me know what you think of this build in the comments down below. Did I actually do the show justice, or did I do this specific build justice? And what did you like about the build, or maybe what you didn't like about the build? And of course, guys, if there's any other animes or shows you'd like me to try to pull a build from, do let me know in the comments down below, because I'm always open to suggestions. But yeah, guys, that is it. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed putting it together. I do want to say thank you so much for watching until the end of this video. And of course, as always, a thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.